Then I just got to tell y'all about this man I met in Nigeria. I was walking along the beach and this Nigerian dude like rode up on me. He was orange. I can't lie. He was orange, orange. And he had that Beijing on his beard and his hair, so it was dark, like black, black. So you got this orange skin, dark hair. He rode up and he was rapping. I was like, oh my God, I am a proud black woman. What I look like with an orange man?
Welcome to BLAXIT to Africa. I'm Tadre Delore Moignet, a California native living my best life in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I hope that you are informed, entertained, and inspired to BLAXIT to Africa.
Hello, beautiful people. Thank you for joining me once again. There's so much happening in the world right now. Today is Nane Nane, which means 8-8 in Kiswahili. It is August 8th, 2024, and the protests continue in Kenya. And this fight is for all Kenyans. However, Gen Z are leading it. And we're in the house right now because we don't know what's going to happen outside these doors. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we have youth who are confident enough, empowered enough, and strong enough to fight for the whole. And being in the house right now is really just an inconvenience. But I come to you today fresh faced in my loungewear, and I hope that's okay. So, in the opening, you may have seen someone in the background. This is my first time doing a podcast in front of an audience that I'm not actually interviewing. And, but we're going to roll with it because that's just how life is. And the person that you saw in the back is actually a guest. I have another guest here who is off camera. And one of the ways that expats make money abroad is by doing Airbnb. So some of you know that I do Airbnb hosting. I also do Airbnb experiences. I have a fashion tour. You can book it online. And we basically just take you to the hottest spots for fashion in Nairobi based on your preferences, of course. And I also do Airbnb hosting. So when I was first looking for a place in Nairobi, I wanted a one bedroom because I'm coming from the US and I'm just used to a one bedroom. It's like, let me just get enough space for me. And what I discovered is that it was much easier to find a two and a three bedroom than it was to find a one bedroom and like a studio. So I just went with it. I said, you know what? I'll have that extra bedroom as an office space. And then ultimately, it transitioned into a space for my mom, and now it's a space for my guests. So when you are thinking of relaxing to another country, think bigger. Think, hey, I may decide to do Airbnb. Maybe you rent a house with several rooms. Maybe you get an apartment with extra guest rooms so that when the need comes about, you can actually use those rooms as a form of income. And so today and for the next 3 days, I have a guest from Italy. And previous to that, I had a guest from London specifically. So just drop in a few little gems for you before we get into the topic at hand. Now, today's topic is bleaching in Africa. Some people call it skin brightening, some people call it skin lightening. However, the word that we use on the street is called bleaching. And per usual, Auntie, I could get off. I could get off target, so I've got my notes aside. You see me glancing over to the left, perhaps you're right. I'm looking at my notes, just making sure that I stay on target. So you might wonder, why are we talking about bleaching in Africa on a podcast that is designed to encourage Africans in the diaspora to repatriate back to Africa? The reason being is because those of us who have never been to Africa in this lifetime, we tend to romanticize Africa. We tend to think that it is a pie in the sky, Or sometimes we just buy into the programming and the messaging from larger media, and we think that, Africans are here in Africa impoverished and, never encountering the outside world, European culture, North American culture, non African culture, and that is not the case. People in Africa grow up on BBC, they grow up on Bollywood flicks, Nollywood flicks, American flicks. So there's a lot of programming that's happening. You also have to think about it from a perspective of, back in the day, a country might have one channel and very little domestic programming. And so their programming was bought from South Africa, from their former colonizers, from the US, etc. And as we say in the US, representation is very, very important. And when you rarely see yourself represented on the small screen or the big screen, it really influences how you see the world. The other reason why we're having this discussion today is because as people who are descendants of those who were stolen, we're often very surprised at the anti blackness that exists on the continent, and it's here. It may not be in the same proportions as you would find in Europe or in the Americas. However, it still exists here. There are people who are would be considered darker skin on the African continuum who were teens growing up. And certainly, as I'll get into later, in terms of jobs in particular industries, people feel like they need to be lighter skinned in order to achieve or access those jobs, in order to access a desirable partner. I'll get into that a bit more. So, this episode is really to prepare you so that when you come here and you see people with these very interesting skin tones and literally skin that is just revolting against the creams, against the pills, the shots, that you will not be surprised. You will understand. I also want to really approach this topic from a place of compassion, not a place of judgment. I have been in that space, most definitely, where I'm judging people who bleach. But as I dig deeper, I realize that compassion is needed and that understanding is needed. And that if we want to change the world, of course, we have to change ourselves. And when we encounter people, even within our own families and friend circles, who use skin lightening, instead of judging and shaming, we hold a space of compassion. And so this is what I want to do in this episode. I hope to achieve it. All right, now before y'all start coming for me, just talk about we not the only people that bleach. I got you. Okay, let's talk about the history of skin bleaching. Goes back to antiquity, before Christ. Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, I would even imagine the Persians, they was bleaching and they was using products made with lead and mercury. I mean, people were dying from it, people were getting skin ulcers from it, and that did not stop people from bleaching. And so why were people bleaching way back in the day? Socioeconomic status. Obviously, if you was lighter skin, you could not be out in the sun working. You were not a farmer, you were not a laborer. That's what you were telling people with your light skin. And so people wanted to access that, and that's why they bleached. And I know there's also a conversation about how fair skinned people darken their skin through various products, through pills, through injections, through spray tanning, through tanning beds, etc., etc. I think that that's part of the conversation, but not the main part of the conversation. The main part of the conversation is about anti blackness and some people's desire to be more proximate to whiteness. So, the reason why this is an issue for me is because I've also been affected by it. I've also experienced it in my own life. Growing up, I had parents on both ends of the color spectrum, and so I never really thought much about it. But then when I started interacting with more Black Americans, I began to see in my own family. My daddy's side, they some Creole people, light skin, green, hazel eyed folks, wavy hair, no grease from New Orleans, Louisiana. And there were times where they projected on me. I even remember there was an aunt that we would visit in LA, and I was just too dark for her. She could not stand looking at me. I literally had to sit outside on the porch while the rest of the family visited inside. Sounds crazy looking at me, right? Uh, it also sounds crazy that an adult would treat a child like that, but that's what I experienced. We moved to what we now call Mid City in Los Angeles, and it was a predominantly Black neighborhood at the time. And there was a little girl named Ebony. She was the darkest person in our neighborhood, and the way they teased her, I had never encountered this before because I had never really lived around in predominantly Black environments. They used to call her African booty scratcher. They would shun her, they would kick her, and she was just so defeated at an early age. We were like 8 and 9. And then we were in the same class, and then to go to school, and we had a white American teacher that to this day, I can tell you she hated us. She hated being at that school. She hated teaching us. She hated having us as students. She was always trying to figure out a way to punish us. And one day she called Ebony a black monkey. And I just saw the little confidence that was left in her. I just saw it drain from her. And when you're a child and you see adults chiming into the collective consciousness, that gives you more permission to be even more evil, to be even more mean and cruel. And to this day, at 50 years old, I still think about Ebony, and I wonder if she's okay. I wonder if she's healed, if she has a family, is she good? Um, I've experienced seeing bleaching products being advertised across billboards, on television, people trying to sell me bleaching products on the black market. I've experienced this really all over Africa. In Zimbabwe, way back when, let's say in the mid 90s, I remember this woman like coming up to me. I'm with a whole group of foreigners, we're volunteers, and I'm like one of 3 black people. But I remember one of the ladies coming up to me and then guiding me to this tent, all the way back in this tent, and she pulls out like some bleaching cream. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't use this. And she got insulted. She became indignant. Everybody around her became indignant. In Morocco, this was in the early aughts, there were skin bleaching product billboards all over Fez, all over Marrakesh. And I kept seeing the same billboards everywhere. I don't read the language, I don't speak it. I didn't really understand what it was until, finally I put 2 and 2 together. There was a woman's face. She was gorgeous. There was a zipper going down her face. On one side was she was darker. And then on the other side, she was lighter, like once she unzipped that side. And that's what the product was promising to do. In Tanzania, whew, the goal in Tanzania, like we talk about to be more proximate to whiteness, the goal in many parts of East Africa is to be more proximate to Arab or Arabness, if that's even a word. And Tanzania is one of those places. And so they will lighten their skin for that purpose, and it's in everything. You have to be so careful when you go to these larger stores, little small dukas, when you buy soaps, when you buy bath wash, when you buy lotion, you have to specifically tell them you want a product without bleaching agents in it. And also risk insulting the seller because they're using those products. So what do you mean? You too good? You don't want the, like, listen. It's a serious thing. I remember my first time coming to Kenya. I went to a wedding in Mombasa. I stayed with a family. And one day, the oldest sister in the family came back with a whole bag full of shopping. And we all gathered around, like, okay, what is all of this? All of it, skin bleaching products. From bar soap to what do you call that? Bubble bath soap to lotions, all of that. It just these huge containers that she was going to use on herself and also her daughter. I thought it was interesting that she was darker skinned and her husband was lighter skinned. So the pressures are real. I lived in Uganda, and Ugandan people, on average, are probably the darkest skinned people in East Africa. I'll go out on a limb and say that. I also, like, I said publicly in Uganda that I felt like Ugandans were more embracing of darker skin, of fuller women, of natural hair. Because that's where I find it in Uganda. I find just the coif, just the beautiful, full, thick, natural, free hair in Uganda that I don't really see in most parts of East Africa. Even in Kenya, like, it's usually in braided extensions. But then I had a Ugandan friend push back and she was like, "You really feel that way?" Because I don't feel that way. From the outside looking in, it seems like Ugandans embrace their darker skin more. However, that does not mean that people are not bleaching, that men and women are not bleaching, more so women. And what was alarming for me is seeing people with their skin literally looking like it was on fire. Just the outbreaks, the skin is just rejecting the creams, it's rejecting all those chemicals, the very red marks here. We all, people laugh about the knuckle discoloration. Also, there's a thinning of the skin. There's a lot happening, and I saw that in Uganda as well. There was a blog that I was reading just to do my research on the topic, and there was something that really, really struck me, where this woman who was middle aged, she got a job working as a flight attendant back in the day, and it was suggested to her that she lighten her skin, and products were given to her, and she used the products. And the quote that really stuck with me, she said, "I could not be expected to serve the elite of Nigeria with dark skin." That statement right there, that's real, real deep. And then recently, a friend of mine who is Nigerian and Kenyan said to me in a conversation that was really unrelated, but she said, "Tadre, I'm a dark skinned African woman, full figure. I'm fighting for my life every day." Then another thing that you encounter a lot in Africa, and I would also expect in the Caribbean as well, correct me if I'm wrong, is when folks take photos, they immediately lighten them. Like their setting is already on light. So there is this really light person, the background is really light. I remember being in Uganda, and me and my friends, they were Peace Corps volunteers from the US. One of them was Mexican American, the other one African American, and there's me. And we went to the Gaba Fish Market. And if you've ever been there, they have all these people out on the pier and they're taking your photos, and they have these cool backdrops and sofas shaped like hearts and all this. So we thought it'd be fun to take a photo together. The guy took our photo and then he sent them to us digitally through our phones. And I was looking at the picture. I was just like, "That's not me. That's too light. Why are the pictures so light? All of us are light in this picture." And that is the expectation. That is what people are going for. So you'll find that when you look on somebody's profile picture on social media, it is shades lighter than who they really are, because that is the image they want to project. Why are people bleaching today? I would say it's the same reason people was bleaching back during antiquity, for social economic gains. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. They not gonna stop marketing to you. When I was coming up, It was Palmer's. The brand was Palmer's. You would get your cocoa butter from Palmer's. You would also get your skin bleaching products from Palmer's. Now, they would market it to African Americans, like, blemish control, stuff like that, because you have to remember, as African Americans, we also went through our civil rights era where it was like, I'm black and I'm proud, James Brown, all of that. So you have to be very careful in how you market to a people that have gone through that revolution. However, in Africa, it's just skin light and skin bright, okay? In Brazil, there was a point in time where, when I was married, we had planned to move to Brazil. And our mindset just wasn't right, because we was like, we're going to move to Brazil and we're going to get jobs. Like, how? We don't even speak the language, and what will we do there? But when asking people and doing our preliminary research, we were told by Black Brazilians that you must be of good appearance to get a job in Brazil. And this was like 2007, I want to say. Everybody knows what good appearance means or meant in Brazil at that time. And unlike in the US, where you would just send a resume in digitally, cover letter, etc., without your photo, in Brazil, it was expected that everybody send in their photos. So you want to be employed in Brazil, you must be of good appearance if you wanted to be anything other than a domestic worker, meaning a housemaid. What I have learned through my workshops and classes on self improvement, when I'm learning in group settings, one of the things that is always prevalent is that people want to be seen for who they are. So many people walk this planet and they feel invisible. And if you fall outside that norm of whiteness, of thinness, of being a certain height, etc., you feel unseen in varying degrees. And lightening your skin, straightening your hair is one way of being seen, of being validated. After all, we are social beings. And if you've read anything about how infants progress to adulthood, if they make it, and they are orphaned and they are without the visual contact, the touch, the smiles early on in life, they do not develop as they should. So it makes sense that we as a species would want to be seen. And I also don't want to miss this opportunity of talking about not just colorism, but texturism as well. I can certainly say that I have, to varying degrees, bought into, well, looser curls are better than micro curls. And in different parts of my life, I have had relaxers, I have had dry curls, the wave nouveau of the late 80s, early 90s. I have used texturizers. I have been frustrated with my hair when it didn't do what I wanted it to do. I've been frustrated when my hair texture changed because my hormones changed, and all of that. So all of this is interlinked. The other reason why I want to talk about this is because I really and truly believe that we cannot be free as a people until we free our minds. And this colorism, this texturism, which results in bleaching and straightening our hair, it's all linked. And until we are able to free ourselves from the mental slavery, as Bob Marley said, we ain't going to be free. People bleach today to increase their social and economic prospects, whether they want a leg up at a job, a foot in the door, whether or not they want to find a desired partner. And these days, it's not just women who are bleaching, it's men as well feeling the pressure. I'm sure social media has played a part in that. So let's talk about it from a global standpoint. According to ResearchGate.net, about 27.7, so basically about 30% of the world's population uses skin bleaching agents. I'm also one of those people. I have something here. It's called Acne Spots Healing Balm from a local company here called Natural Lamu. And I bought it because I had some bites and the spots, the dark spots wouldn't go away. However, it's made of these all natural ingredients: coconut oil, neem leaf extract, moringa, neem oil, beeswax, green tea, dried tulsi, other essential oils like lavender, eucalyptus, bergamot, turmeric, something else I can't pronounce, frankincense, and vitamin E. So I could definitely say I've been one of those people to buy a product that, is designed to, tackle those spots, those unwanted dark spots. They're saying here that these products that the global population purchases is designed to treat hyperpigmentation, disorders like melasma, post inflammatory hyperpigmentation. And as darker skinned people, we are more prone to hyperpigmentation from acne, from bug bites, from scarring, etc. The global market for skin whitening products was estimated to be worth 8.8 billion in 2022. So we not just honing in on Africans. I don't want people to feel targeted. This is a global phenomenon. And is expected to grow to $15.7 billion USD dollars in dineros by 2030. Women of color account for 80% of global sales. Creams are the most popular product, but now they done come out with shots, honey. There's pills that you could take. It's just Asia Pacific market is expected to grow the most, with China being the fastest growing market. I think most of us have seen Asians, specifically Japanese and Chinese women, doing their best. They level best, not too dark in their skin, not to get the sun. They be out in the sun with the big hats on, and then there's some sort of like filtered mask that goes over. They got the gloves, all of that, even at the beach. It's real. Meanwhile, you got white women in the US and Australia that's doing their best, honey, to get dark. That's a whole other story. So, how are people bleaching? Colorism is real, y'all. I just said I grew up with it in my family. We experience it in our daily realities. There's a woman in Uganda that is so gorgeous. She's actually turned it around. She talks about how she was teased growing up as a darker skinned woman. I think Lupita Nyong'o has even mentioned it as well. And these are African women that are absolutely gorgeous, and they have experienced it growing up and just flipped it to where it's like the world can't help but see you. So people are bleaching mainly with creams, but there are soaps, liquid and hard soap. There are pills, there are shots, and apparently the pills and the shots were really popular in the Philippines. And now they have been circulated to the rest of the world. There's it's just there's a lot out there. There's a product called Whitenicious, or a brand called Whitenicious. It was started by a Nigerian woman. She has since used Black China. I think she changed her name she changed her name back to her birth name, which ironically her last name is White. But Black China, we all know her. She then was paid to endorse this line of products called Whitenicious. I checked it out and was shocked. Like, these products is $100. They $50, $100, and they even have a whole line for children. Imagine. And what I discovered in my research is that you have parents who are lightening their skin and then also lightening their children's skin for two reasons. One, because they don't want people to look at their children and realize, oh, you're actually not genetically that light. And B, they don't want their children to suffer being social outcasts. And, I can't imagine what this is doing to children's skin when they're still growing, but it's happening. So let's get into the statistics. According to the World Health Organization, 77% of Nigerians bleach. That is the highest percentage, reported percentage, of any group or country on the planet. 77%. As you know, if you've watched my video where I think it was like Kenya versus Nigeria, where I talked about how Nigeria helped me value Kenya much more. You know that I traveled to Nigeria earlier this year, in I think it was February, March. I saw it. I saw it and I was actually really disturbed by the amount of bleaching because as people are going through their bleaching phase, you see them go from this weird, like, brown orange color to orange, and then the skin just gets really inflamed and it's light, and then it's like really light. But then you're seeing this really light skin on very full features, and it's, in my personal opinion, aesthetically, it just don't match up. And so you have a group of people who are seemingly really proud of their culture, of their cultures. They love their food, they love their rituals to a certain degree, as long as it doesn't interfere with Christianity. They are proud to be Nigerians, and yet there's this dichotomy of the skin lightening. And I was confused by it. So I talked to a friend who is Nigerian, and she just broke it down for me. And she was like, yeah, it exists. We don't call it skin bleaching, we call it skin brightening. And it's so much a part of the culture now that it's really expected. And I find that if you don't have the straight Brazilian Indian lace front wig and the light skin to match, and the lashes and the nails and the full face of makeup, it's like, who are you? What are you really doing out here in these streets? It's like, it's almost like you're not really valued there if you don't have all of these things. So there is a 27.1% global lifetime prevalence in Africa, meaning that at some point in your lifespan as an African, you 27.1% of people will use a skin bleaching product. 25 to 80% of women in Africa use skin lightening products, SLPs for short, regularly. 25 to 80%. Mali is 25%, Nigeria is 77%, South Africa 32%, Ghana 39%, Senegal 50%. That one really surprised me, maybe because I've never been to Senegal. I just imagine Senegalese people, my stereotype of them is tall and dark and thin and just well dressed. So 50% is quite high, 66% in Congo, Brazzaville, and 31.15% in Zimbabwe. It's important to note that colonization didn't miss nobody. I know our Ethiopian brothers and sisters like to be out there. We were never colonized. Like, let's, I'm not going to go into that, but we know that the Italians were there. So much so that spaghetti is always on the menu at every Ethiopian restaurant. The Greeks, uh, the Persians, Indians, all the Phoenicians, all of those people were in East Africa, the Horn of Africa, etc. And so, due to colonization and post colonization, there is still a desire to be proximate to whiteness. And so it don't miss nobody. I remember flying very recently from Nairobi to the coast. Where was I going? I was going to Otago. And there were women who were being interviewed for flight attendant positions, and they were waiting in the waiting area along with those of us who were flying. And I just quickly scanned the ladies, and I could easily tell that many of them had bleached for this particular occasion. Skin on fire, revolting outbreaks, skin colored in very interesting stages. And it just brought me back to the Nigerian woman back in the day who said she could not be expected to serve the elite with dark skin. And of the women who were interviewing for these flight attendant positions, they weren't just Kenyan. They were Somali as well, Somali Kenyan as well. According to the WHO, among Basutu community and Lesotho, occupation and marital status are factors associated with the use of SLPs. They played a significant role in the use of these products as they believe that lighter skin is superior and tend to ignore the risks. I include this because I thought it was interesting. Female factory workers were almost 3 times as likely to use SLPs compared to professional women. So, what does that mean? That means that perhaps in Lesotho, it's the lighter skinned women that get the professional jobs. So if you're working in a factory, you tired of working in that factory, you want to move up. What do I have to do? Lighten my skin. Marital status also impacts SLP use. They found that they said 2.37 times more likely to use SLPs among divorcees and widowers than single women. So what that's telling me is that in order to marry and marry well in Lesotho, you need to have lighter skin. So you've got women that have divorced and women who have lost a husband who are lightening their skin so that they can access the marriage market a lot easier as opposed to single women who are not using it as much. So globally, let me go back. In Africa, the reasons for using SLPs, people are saying about 52% for pigment disorders like melasma, 39% express a preference for lighter skin, and an additional 10%, roughly 10%, reported both reasons for using SLPs. I think the key word right there is report, because the reasons you report might be different from your actual reasons. You've got somebody who's not from your community who's asking you these questions, you may not feel comfortable divulging the truth. Why is bleaching a problem? Bleaching is a problem because of what it can do to your body, how it can shorten your lifespan, what it does to your health. Apparently, about 62% of people who use bleaching agents in Africa are unaware of the active ingredients. They just using the product unaware of how it can really affect you. And like I said, how we view ourselves is tied to our liberation. That's why this is important. There are all types of adverse effects associated with skin bleaching. I'm just going to go through them real quick. Liver damage. Your liver is what takes the toxins that you feed it and somehow distributes it or holds on to it. So, of course, there's liver damage, there's nerve damage. One woman I read, she has constant tremors in her hands from using products that have harmful agents in them, like mercury, dermatitis, steroid acne. So, some of these products, not this one, but some of these bleaching products have steroids in them. So, you can have steroid acne, discoloration, changes in skin thickness. Your skin becomes very, very thin to where it rips. I remember being in Uganda and I was in Matatu and I looked up, there was a huge billboard and it was in front of a mall and they were advertising. One of the stores in the mall was advertising that they do skin bleaching. They had a before picture and they had an after picture of the same woman. The before picture, her skin was just real, real questionable. Okay. The knuckles were dark, etc. But the skin was very light. However, you could see it was inflamed. The after picture, her skin was very light. It was blemish free, and they showed the knuckles. The knuckles had tape around them. I was like, this is not a very good after photo. But this was on the billboard. The knuckles had tape around them because they had split. Because when you apply these products so much, especially the ones that have the no-go products in them, the no-go active ingredients, your skin becomes thin and will rip and tear. Inflammatory disorders, mercury poisoning, nephrotic syndrome, exogenous ochronosis, slower wound healing due to thinner skin layers, delayed skin regrowth, reduced tissue support, impaired tissue formation, increased likelihood of wound infection, dehiscence, dehiscence. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It don't sound good. Then you have health problems that are associated specifically with ingredients like hydroquinone, corticosteroids, and mercury. Because I'm doing this episode knowing full well that everybody's not going to stop bleaching. But those three ingredients, you have to stay away from those: hydroquinone, steroids, and mercury. Skin cancer, mercury poisoning, nephrotic syndrome, adrenal insufficiency, Cushing's syndrome, diabetes mellitus, osteocrosonis, osteonecrosis of the femoral head, life-threatening post-operative adrenal crisis. So those health issues specifically are associated with these active ingredients: hydroquinone, steroids, and mercury. Baby, I say this with love. If you gonna use skin bleaching products, you better start reading the back. Read the ingredients. Stay away from those. As I'm talking about this, I keep thinking about how when I lived in Zanzibar, people would use turmeric as a natural bleaching agent. Uh, I don't know if turmeric like really bleaches or it brightens, but I would say I've definitely used honey and turmeric and other spices in my mask, and I think it does brighten. I've also used charcoal and things like that to draw out purities, but I would walk down the road in Zanzibar near the markets and there would just be a ball of something, like a hard ball of something. People would tell me, oh, you use it for your skin. I did, but they couldn't translate to me exactly what was in it. But I could definitely tell that some of it had turmeric and it was definitely for skin brightening. From Fanta Face to Sweet Spot. Fanta face is a derogatory term used to describe somebody who's obviously bleaching. And one of the things that came up for me in this research is that it's really not so shameful to bleach, but it's shameful to look like you're bleaching. So when you look like a Fanta face, i.e., the Fanta, the orange soda, people gonna come at you, right? And then, like, for those people who, like, you're bleaching one month, but then you can't afford the creams the next month, there's a certain level of shame that comes with it. Another derogatory term is people would say, your face is in Europe, but your body's in Africa. Or I said that wrong. Your body's in Africa, your face is in Europe. And I've heard these terms, and I've laughed. I'm one of those people who has laughed, but I've learned to have compassion. So people are willing to go from having this orange complexion to the sweet spot. And your skin goes through, like, it's a long period of time. It's several months to where your skin is like fighting back. You know what I'm saying? It's like we gonna keep producing this melanin. We don't care. And then it gets to a point where it's just like we tired, and finally submits to this so-called sweet spot, to where you have the light skin, the knuckles match the rest of the skin, your feet, everything, the back of your ears, and everything is light, light, light. You don't have no blemishes. That's the sweet spot. And to watch people go through that is painful. I've actually watched someone close to me go through that. And it's interesting because it's for months. I guess it's just like plastic surgery, where people are willing to undergo the pain and the humiliation to actually reach this point to where finally you are seen and you are valued. Now, there are men who are using SLPs, skin lightening products. I think the most famous might be Sammy Sosa, who's Dominican American, Vibes Cartel. He even made a song about it. He's so unashamed. He's from Jamaica. Pela Okimute. Okay? Okay. Pela Okimute. They're calling him Nigeria's hottest cream mixer. He's got a whole skin whitening line. I did look at some of the ingredients though. Apparently, none of them are with harmful ingredients, but maybe a dermatologist could tell us better. Yo, he's got products that are $200. Woo, it ain't cheap to skin bleach. Then I just got to tell y'all about this man I met in Nigeria. I was walking along the beach, and this Nigerian dude like rode up on me. He was orange. I can't lie. He was orange, orange. And he had that Beijing on his beard and his hair, so it was dark, like black, black. So you got this orange skin, dark hair. He rode up and he was rapping. I was like, oh my God, I am a proud black woman. What I look like with an orange man, you know? And I'm just like, what is, I was incredulous. The fact that he just had the confidence to roll up on me like I was going to be receptive to that. Ah. So, what is this telling us though? It's telling us that there's increasing pressure for men to be light skinned. They also want to be chose, and they feel like going lighter is the way to go. Now, there are African nations that have banned SLPs: South Africa, Rwanda, Cote d'Ivoire, Tanzania, Kenya, and Ghana. That don't mean those products are not available here. I can tell you right now, they are available in Kenya. So what do we do as people of African descent? We see it around us. Our loved ones, people that we love and cherish and trust, are pushing these products on us, telling us that we need to use these products in order to find a suitable partner, in order to get a good job, to not embarrass the family. Because if your whole family's using it and you're the only one that's not, you're giving away their little secret. The answer is to pour into our loved ones, to big them up as much as possible. I know self esteem is a job for the self. I'm just reminded of when my hair first started turning white. And I was dyeing my hair every 7 to 11 days, baby. Okay? Like I wasn't playing. And my girlfriend, she tried to sew into me. She would say, women with silver hair look really good. They're really attractive. And she would, I wouldn't hear her. I was just like, I'm too young. I'm too young to have this silver hair, you know? But eventually, her words came back to me. And a few years later, I was like, let's just let this come in. Let's just let it come in. So keep pouring into your loved ones, and maybe one day it will stick. There is a quote by Professor Shirley Ann Tate. She is an expert on the subject, and she says, people are responding to the context in which they find themselves. Let me repeat. People are responding to the context in which they find themselves. I get so excited when I see brown, dark skinned women getting loved on by black men. I love to see it. I will repost, I will share it in my stories. And it gives me hope because the world will have you think that you're not worthy of love and affection if you are not on the lighter ends of the color spectrum. But what I'm saying is where you have those people who have that belief that brighter is better, that straighter hair is better. You also have legions of people who believe, who know in their heart, their minds, and their spirits that they like what they like, and they going after brown skin, darker skin. They welcome it. Sometimes they even prefer it. And you got to get in where you fit in. You can't you can't keep trying to fit yourself into a round hole when you're a square peg. And I've seen people try to do it, and it's so horrifying to watch. You dating somebody that would prefer that you look different, that person ain't for you. That job ain't for you. Another thing we can do is approach from no judgments. I know that in our cultures, we tend to laugh at people. We tend to scoff behind their backs about the bleaching, but we need to have compassion and we need not have judgment because you don't know what somebody has been through. And in the particular case with one of my loved ones who has hit the sweet spot, honey, and I watched them go through that really awkward stage and they use SOPs on a regular. I know for a fact that this person has been through a lot as a child and their skin color was used against them.
That's it for today, y'all. Thank you for joining me on this episode of BLAXIT to Africa. If you liked what you heard, please share, subscribe, and leave a comment. May you thrive. May you be inspired. May you move with love and intention. Until next time.